who carries the liability? That's my main question is it the batter? Is it the pitcher? Is it the team? Is it the park? All of these are questions that I don't think have been adequately answered.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming back to another Foul Ball Safety Now talk. We're excited to bring our guest on very shortly. We're going to first talk about some news for a few minutes before we turn the tables and let our guest ask us the questions. I'm also with Brianna Ludwig. She's been with me co-hosting these talks. Brianna is going to have an opportunity to share her thoughts and ask some questions to our guest towards the end if she feels like she wants to. I am excited to bring on a guest, but before we do, I want to talk about some news. The journalist I've been working with now, Brendan, for now 6 years at Foul Ball Safety Now, we just concluded an interview with a woman who happened to be a witness of a little girl getting seriously injured at Yankee Stadium in 2017. And it was very courageous of her to tell us about that experience. She was sitting a few rows behind a little child who was hit by a ball. It was past the end of the dugouts at Yankee Stadium, and people can see that video at Foul Ball Safety Now. If they click on Exhibit A, they'll see that there's a 5-minute thread of unfortunate incidences, and one of them was this incident at Yankee Stadium back in 2017. So she was very nice to go into that territory with us and discuss her own feelings. What I'm going to try to do is remind us all that even in 2025, 8 years after that incident, there's still between 30 and 40 cities, professional baseball cities, that still do not have netting past the end of the dugouts. So it may be potentially happening anytime in one of these other places. And why, after this video aired in 2019, which demonstrated how dangerous it was for this little girl to be there in 2017, that we're talking 6 years later, that nobody really has stepped up. No agency has stepped in to make the implementations that are needed to conduct business. At very least, it should have been told that this is a regular thing where balls do come at these speeds, and that human beings, if they're 18 and older, should be aware of this. But I don't think they should have been allowed to bring their kids to the games. You know, similar to like running with bulls in places like Spain, you have to be 18 and older, but you can't bring the little ones. And, 700,000 people saw this video in 2019, which aired on ESPN, on part of the network, whether it was just online, whether it was on TV. People can see the engagement, 700,000 views. But unfortunately, 6 years later, there's still 30 to 40 places that I know of that don't have the netting past the end of the dugouts. And again, teams that have upgraded, in my mind, that's improvements, that's not solutions. How do we finally get to address the solutions? How do we finally get to the ideas that baseball was incorrect by allowing the doors to open, or clearly didn't express enough awareness to the fan base before they got to the ballpark about what they could potentially expect? You can also go to Exhibit A1, which is a report that Brendan and I revisited. It was a 538 publication. They published something in 2019. Brendan and I actually took a look at that report, and just a few months back in 2025, we demonstrated our interpretation of the 538 report so that people can see that there's hundreds of thousands of balls that fly into the stands that go foul inside the ballpark, outside the ballpark. And people can figure out by looking at these charts that 538 report demonstrates the hot zones and where balls frequently go. And we know for a fact that some of these balls go seriously fast. And baseball does know exactly how many to the penny, because they've been tracking things for the last decade or two. So why isn't this information being shared with everyone before we go to the game? But without further ado, I want to leave it there. I want people who are tuning in for the first time to look at foul ball safety now, look at our research, and see what we put together over the last 6 years. And I want to introduce our guest. We're excited to talk and hear from him. He's an actor, an aspiring author, Donald Omi. Donald, how you doing today?
Hey, Jordan, how are you?
We're doing good. Thank you so much. Great to be here with you. And we're looking forward for you to bring questions to us. And we're all game to hear, anything that you think would be an engaging question. And hopefully you'll get good responses from us.
When reading over the website, I was not understanding exactly why a publicly funded building like a ballpark, the city government doesn't take responsibility for injuries happening within the buildings that they've used public funds to construct.
I had a lawsuit in the state of Illinois. We had somebody who was injured by a foul ball, thankfully not too seriously, a little over a decade ago, but we needed someone in the state of Illinois to be our plaintiff. But it was a combination of a few things that we put in the complaint, including that the team, the Peoria Chiefs, got some sort of taxpayer forgiveness where they would waive the debt that they owed the city. And we felt like, why would you be waiving the debt to what this team owes the city when they're not even providing appropriate netting? They were one of the worst offenders. They were one of 120 teams did not have netting above the dugout at the time. We can clearly demonstrate how dangerous that is. So we went a year in court, and you raised a really good question there.
Many of the ballparks are public-private partnerships. It's not just tax breaks that they actually use taxpayer funds to either finance or even the deferred taxes for those uh, corporations that are owning the teams and MLB in general. They get serious money from the public coffers to construct or remodel these stadiums. Public responsibility of these public institutions, I think, is paramount when doing the remodels and the constructions. And I'm a little miffed that that's not just an easy turnkey solution to some of these things. Is that the public government takes responsibility?
Yes. And case by case, and in each city, a lot of these fields are city owned. And I feel like there should be a burden on the local teams, turn back the clock, to have taken care of this matter a lot sooner. And I think the general public demands and deserves an acknowledgement that they've had inferior netting all along, and somebody needs to be held accountable. At the end of the day, it's business as usual in 2025, and you have 169 professional clubs. In addition, you have the 30 major league clubs. So you have basically 199 cities that are operating. How are they operating? Case by case. Some of it is city land. Some of these teams are leasing the land, leasing the ballpark. They're clearly not working with local agencies to determine where the netting should or shouldn't be, because it's unregulated. Whether you're inside the ballpark or outside the ballpark, which we're learning about a lot this year, people getting struck outside of the ballpark. I'm dealing with a Queens College investigation right now where a student whistleblower athlete is worried that they're going to hit a kid by the elementary school, because if you Google Earth Queens College, you'll see there's a bunch of kids that may be walking next to the field. So the kids are concerned, the 20-year-olds are concerned that they're going to hit little kids who are, little kids, elementary school students. It's legitimate, and we're going to push forward to make sure that it's dealt with. Yeah.
You don't have to convince me that
Yeah.
and I don't think you have to convince your listeners that it is. These balls are flying around all over the place, and
Right.
people are in danger of being hit constantly. It's who carries the liability? That's my main question. Is it the batter? Is it the pitcher? Is it the team? Is it the park? All of these are questions that I don't think have been adequately answered. That's where my the big question mark over my head hangs out is who is ultimately responsible for somebody being injured by a projectile.
Right.
And if I throw a rock, if I'm walking by a freeway and I throw a rock and it hits a windshield and somebody dies, I've committed manslaughter. And
Yeah.
if
No.
I hit a baseball and it goes into traffic and somebody gets an accident, that is manslaughter. It's not obviously not murder unless I'm
Right.
sitting there doing it on purpose. And then
Yeah.
definitely it would be murder. But
Sure.
there is a liability in other cases, and how come playing a sport admonishes people from liability? There was that hockey player that did the high kick and killed a guy on the ice. I'm
Okay.
not remembering the guy's name. That was one of those gray areas where I think he was ultimately charged because of his aggressive play.
Yeah, baseball players have not been charged. There is an assumption of risk, which may be the umbrella that baseball's been under for years. It's called the baseball rule. So if people just Google the baseball rule, it's recognized in most states, not only on the professional level, but on the collegiate level, where if a batter hits a ball in the seats or even outside in the parking lot, you are assuming the risk because you were either next to the ballpark or you were inside the ballpark. That's definitely seems to be unfair, but baseball has had that shield, so they've had little incentive to really get to the bottom line of preventing injuries. That's business as usual, unfortunately. I mean, 2025, Brianna and I and a few other people have put together a bunch of people that are still getting injured. People are self-reporting their injuries. That's how we're finding out about these injuries, and they're serious. But we know just in the last few years, a man blinded in Pittsburgh at a major league game, a woman seriously concussed in Toronto last year at a major league game, two children critically injured in the minor leagues, a woman standing outside a ballpark just 2 years ago in July of '23, and we just learned of a settlement in July of 2025, just being outside the ballpark where the ball came down on her head. During 3-hour period, it could be 5 or 15 balls or somewhere in between that are raining outside on the sides, similar to what the Queens College student is worried about and what his teammates are worried about. Balls are flying inside and outside, and they can create major damage, and baseball and these universities seem to be protected, and shame
Who
on them.
created the baseball rule, may I ask?
Well,
Who
I mean, I think you're gonna see the owners back in 1913, puffing some cigars and feeling like we're good guys. Let the maiming commence. I say that a little sarcastically or facetiously, but they knew when they had this recognized. It's been recognized by most courts that lawyers won't even take the case if the baseball rule is recognized in that particular state because they won't get their case heard. They're not going to do 20, 30, 40 hours worth of paperwork and not even get their case within the in the door. We can tell based on all the data that we found and all the cases that we know of that high profile cases are the only ones that usually get any consideration for settlement, and we are aware of some cases. So, we're tracking this.
suing the estate of Abner Doubleday sounds like a maybe a way to go.
Yeah. It's a lot. There's a lot of
He invented
information
it.
out there. Yeah.
It's tough when you don't know who to point the finger at. And this baseball rule, if it did come into existence with a bunch of cigar smokers around a table, then I'm not really understanding why it's treated with such kid gloves. How come it's not? It's
Yeah.
never been codified into law.
Yeah, it's
Hmm.
been codified in Illinois. I know that. I'm not an attorney, so it's even harder to sue. We are also aware of one lawyer that's taken on 2 or 3 of these experiences as, representing the plaintiff, where he was successful in getting some settlements. There was a case in Illinois, it was Rybarski versus White Sox, 2018, where the Judge Flanagan, suggested something to the effect that the White Sox, who were the defendant, had prior knowledge, had advanced knowledge that their nets may have not been high enough, far enough, and wide enough, far enough and wide enough, and suggesting something called willful wanton conduct, that they had advanced knowledge of this. And ultimately, that case was settled. So there are some chinks in the armor. There are some precedents. So when I do meet new attorneys, when people find my website at Foul Ball Safety Now, and they say I have this pop up for wanted pro bono lawyers, they're going to be like, "What do you need my services for?" And I'm like, "You guys need to get in a room and establish a theory, depending on the city, depending on the state. Usually it's a state law, and wrap your head around this issue and look at Exhibit A from 2019 and show it to your local magistrate and tell them to get pissed off that this is business as usual and not allow kids to be sitting in these hot zones."
Just today in my feed, I saw apparently there was a foul ball or a home run hit at a Phillies game, and a father picked up the ball as this older lady was scrambling for it, and he swooped it up and handed
Yeah,
it to his son. Did you
yeah.
see this one?
I did a few
Gave a
days ago.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, gave his son a big hug.
yeah,
So what it turned into was a marketing opportunity. And
yeah.
every one of these foul ball injuries, I would see that as a PR and a marketing opportunity for the club or for the player, maybe all of them, to lavish this person who was injured with free tickets and swag and all all the things that had happened to this lucky little boy.
Yes, I saw all how it had played out. As you all know, when we're going to a game, the people's mindset going in is, "Oh, I hope I get a ball. I hope I get a foul ball." And it's associated with the concept of fun and entertainment and, "Oh, joy, look what I got. I'm 1 in 50,000. I just picked up a ball." I felt that way as a kid growing up. I was under the impression that if I caught the ball that day, I'd be special. I did get one ball about 10, 15 years ago, and it wasn't any miraculous catch. It was rolling down the aisle. I have it. It's mine. Now, that woman in the moment, she thought it was her ball. And if she thought wasn't a big deal, she probably would not have gotten to the man's face and taken the ball away from the child. But whether you're 50 years old or 10 years old, you still want that ball.
It's a
Right.
bad look. It's a bad look.
It
I'm
it was a
sorry.
bad look.
Taking
She'll
taking
yeah,
candy from a baby. There it is.
it's right, but whether they're 70 or 50 or 10, they want the ball. She felt like it was hers, and I felt bad for her. She probably got a lot of, all the people for 2 days, but it'll pass and she'll be fine. That's the issue. We need to get in the minds of people that America's pastime, baseball, is not gonna enlighten you about all the injuries that they can expect every year. Every winter since 1970, when a 14-year-old boy died, baseball's had every opportunity to come clean, to tell us and educate us all about this is the real climate about what you could expect. Your seat may not be hit tomorrow, but it may be hit the day after or the day before. Families needed to know this, and they were not given the memo. People just have to go to Exhibit A1 and look at the 538 report from 2019, and Brendan and I don't exaggerate anything. If anything, we take 53 foul balls, which were the average per game in 2019. We cut it down to 25 because we didn't want to look like we were inflating anything. And if you take 14,000 professional games in addition to Major League Baseball, that's 350,000 foul balls per year. People should be demanding to know, well, if I'm sitting in those sections, how many of them will be coming my way at those speeds? I should know
Right.
this before I get to the game. They're not told that. They may be told when they get to the game, be careful of a foul ball. But the last I checked, we're not superheroes, and we're not going to be able to defend ourselves once we are faced with that flying ball at 100.
Here is my big question for you, Jordan,
Sure.
is what is foul ball safety now's end game? Is it signage at the entrances?
Uh-huh.
Beware, a warning blurb at the point of sale, the ticket sale, or the ticket booth? full netting. To what height? I think there's issues with blocking of views and people, the parks and the audience. I don't think really want the full netting. Maybe even plexi, but plexi, I don't know. Cleaning the plexi would be a difficult thing. Different colored seating in the various hot zones might be something
Yeah.
that would help people beware. You sitting in these seats,
Yeah.
the red seats or the orange seats are seats that
Yeah.
are in danger of being hit by a foul ball. So be vigilant. And I think
Yeah. Yeah.
personal responsibility is really the main thing. You're walking into a ballpark, you've been warned sufficiently, then it becomes a point of personal responsibility. If you're taking a small child into one of these hot zones, the onus is on you. Unfortunately, I think that's the way that I think it should be. You instead of taking her to the ballpark, you could have taken her to the zoo, and if she didn't fall into the lion's cage, she would be fine.
You bring up some good ideas for sure, but prior to going to the game, I believe the consensus would be we should all know a lot more than we do until we get to the game. So before we get to the game, what's imparted to the fans prior? Are there injury reports given? No, they don't share how many injuries there are every year. Are
Stadium
there
signage.
if there's stadium signage all over the place? Are we still superheroes? And should we bring our 4-year-olds to the game? Because even as parents, are we really superheroes where we could defend our children? Most baseball players will attest, there's no way I'm sitting there on my night off with my family. Or baseball players attest to, oh, I've been telling my mother and father for years, you need to sit behind the nets. At the same time, they know that the rest of the human beings weren't given that memo, weren't given that instruction. So there's a lot that needs to be shared with the fan base prior to going to the game. And if agencies now need to get the memo on this because we now know a lot more than we did yesterday, then let them step in and say certain things. It's above my pay grade and maybe our pay grades to decide how high, far, and wide the nets need to be and where the 4-year-olds are allowed to sit. Now, if the questions are raised, why is this the only commercial business that allows, parents to sit in sections with kids where they're facing missiles? Let everyone at least know about it. And again, it's only the 3 of us talking. Let people who are inside these agencies, the OSHAs of the world, who are looking out for the 14 and the 15 and the 16-year-old workers starting out work for the first time, selling hot dogs in the aisles, and the ushers that have their backs turned to the play. And even if people are staring vigilantly and not on their phones, really, what kind of chance do they have? Look at the umpire, Hunter Wendelstedt. And that was just a few months ago. That's Exhibit A2 on the website. It shows a line drive going into an umpire at 100 feet away, 90 feet to the base and 10 feet behind. And in these 30 to 40 other cities, there's also 100 feet past the end of the dugout to the right or to the left, first base or third base side. These fans don't have a chance. This umpire was staring without blinking, and he caught one right between the head. We're not superheroes, and that's what we finally have to recognize. We never were, we never will. People bring gloves, and I think they bring it to catch the ball, not to defend themselves. And I think I was talking about this the other day with another gentleman on a recording. I think most people don't even end up catching the ball. They may deflect the ball. 80% of the people, it's getting off their glove and maybe hitting the person next to them.
Your ultimate end game would be public awareness. Just
Public
everybody is
awareness.
fully aware of the danger that going to a ball game includes.
Public
And
awareness and
that's
let the chips fall where they may.
so if every person walking into a stadium was fully aware that they're in danger of being hit by a foul ball, that would be Foul Ball Safety Now's ultimate goal.
18 and older, you want to take a line drive to the neck? Come on down. Why wasn't baseball marketing their sport that way? Maybe they thought that if they did it that way, like, hey, people, we're going to be real with you. Here's the stats. Now come on down. But you're not bringing the 4-year-old. I'm not going to justify, even if they do communicate
Designated kid areas with high netting
designated
and
areas. Brianna would not bring her child to the game in the current state of lack of communication. But Brianna, what would make you come to a game with your child?
Yeah, people deserve to make an educated decision. So that's why the awareness is so important. Before coming into contact with this campaign, if I'm not a baseball fan, but if somebody invited me to a game, of course, like, yeah, me and my son will go to a game. That sounds so much fun. But after coming into contact with this campaign, I now am educated enough where it would be immoral and unethical, in my opinion, for me to take my child or anybody else's child to a game, because I know there's no area of the ballpark, of any ballpark, that they can look you in the eye and 100% guarantee your safety, and I wouldn't put my son in that position because I know the extent of the injuries and that it could impact his life forever.
Box seating.
Box seating, yeah, and or
Owner's box. They're protected.
I mean, it's 2025. I'm pretty sure that you have the technology and the wherewithal to make it so that nobody is getting hit by a foul ball, but what they've done, going back to the marketing, Donald, they've created this air of mystere and this feeling of longing and yearning for a foul ball, and they've associated it with, you wanna catch it, and they've really made it this nostalgic sort of integral part of the game for many of their fans, and so, not only is that giving people the wrong idea, but it's also creating this air of an initial knee-jerk reaction to not wanting netting, and again, this is with uneducated fans, because if people were truly educated to the extent of injuries, how many people are injured, like Jordan was saying, there's a report out right now on foulballsafetynow.com for this season alone, and we are just over 20 injuries so far. A majority of them are fan injuries. There's only a few player injuries on there that we know of, that we've had to research.
They're self-reported,
Let's
yeah.
let's say there's 5 times that. So that would be 100 injuries. And how many games so far or for the season? And
I
how many
think it
yeah,
matters
well, I'm
because one is too
let's take the number of games times the number of fans that were viewing the games. We're talking 100 people is probably a 0.00001% of the total fans that participated in all of those functions. I'm pulling
No,
statistics
no,
out of
it's
my
good. It's
back
good
end,
that you bring
but
these up.
but it's a but
Yeah.
it is a very, very small number. And yes, I'm not diminishing the pain and suffering that the people who are injured have to deal with. But in all, it's kind of like taking an airplane. There's that Rain Man on talking about flying Qantas on that famous movie with Dustin Hoffman and Tom Cruise. The Rain Man's calculus, there is a potential, but the potentiality, if you can't leave your house if you start thinking like that. I mean,
No, but
you
they do know in advance. Don't you think there's accountability for them not being more
well, I
transparent?
agree
And don't
for
you
the
think we
reasons that I
need to
stated
address
before.
that? How do we integrate integrity into baseball? Apparently, it's never been. So if people really want to go, this is wholesome, this is apple pie, this is integrity, nah.
This
And I'll
is
be
this
able
is a
to at least say
personal
that.
responsibility. It's back to
Yeah,
personal responsibility. Brianna's done the math, and she thinks no. I've
right.
done the math, and I would probably go with children to a
What
game,
about
but
the argument walking down the street on 42nd Street? Every week, there's X amount of rocks coming down. If one came down close to Brianna or I walking, if we just happened to be, what the heck was that? And well, you can expect the same thing tomorrow, people. Maybe one in
Jordan,
24 hours. That's not a lot. That's only
There was
one
that
per second, 60
that
seconds.
poor
I
girl on the
also
North
just cut.
Carolina bus. She was just minding her own business, looking at her phone. I mean, you can't.
Baseball's not giving you the proper information. Again, we just interviewed a woman. She was very kind to go back and share her experience with us. This was 8 years ago. She witnessed a little girl, 2 years old, making noise from being struck by a ball. Brianna's probably getting sick hearing this. Just this woman, sharing the story with us, it's very powerful. We have the information. There's 350,000 balls that are flying into seats, foul balls. Now, they're not all coming at 100, But isn't it time we just finally know what baseball's been keeping from us all these years? Or do you think we're more better not knowing? I believe, Donald, in conversation, most people are ready to just say, well, just tell us exactly how bad it was, and then we'll wrap our head around it, and then we'll move on. I think we're more of that
Frankly,
kind of society. And if people just
frankly,
don't want to
before
know, then they're the hardliners, and they're not ready to accept anything of that we can present.
before we started talking, Jordan,
Yes.
I was completely unaware of the danger. I guess I was peripherally aware of it, and because the numbers are so small that of people that do get injured, I wasn't thinking of it as a risk. However, I think it is important for people to understand that there is a risk and there is no liable party. So
Right.
once when people get injured, you think, okay, so who's going to take care of me? Who is at fault and who's going to take care of me? And the I think the most important part of this dragon that you've chosen to slain is the point that there is no liability. You'd think that the park would be liable. You think that the team, the player, the ball manufacturer. No, no, I'm just joking. But
Yeah.
there should be a point of liability, and
Yeah.
because there is none, that I think is the real crux of your marketing move. Who's going to take responsibility for any lingering injuries that this little girl who was hit 8 years ago, maybe she's
Yeah. We hear she's made a very good recovery, so we're happy about that. We've interviewed two people that have lost eyes. We've met this gentleman by the name of Erwin Goldblum, whose wife unfortunately was killed at the Dodger game. We know of two little girls, one little girl, both by the name of Alexis, these two little girls, and one is now a teenager, and we hear that she forgets things all the time. So she has post
right.
neurological issues. But again, when you said the most important issue is the liability if you're struck, I think most people would prefer not to have ever been hit and then
Oh, I
worry about
agree.
who they should sue.
I agree.
So that's where baseball can definitely not show that they've been truly transparent. That is their legacy. You spend $0 on assumption of risk. You put it on the back of tickets, you put it on the e-tickets that nobody can see. And then when they're finally at the game, this is without any other awareness. You may put up an announcement. There may even be a seat by your cup holder. I mean, a sign by your cup holder in front of you that says, be careful of a foul ball, but we're not superheroes. Donald, why are the little
Yes
ones
or no?
there without
Yeah.
notice? So I have
Yeah.
to bring
So
that up. Nobody wants the injury. Nobody's worried about the recourse of what I do after I get the injury. They would have preferred a strong letter or a memo over the winter. And if they ever did try to communicate that in the last 55 years after a 14-year-old boy died at Dodger Stadium, then the agencies would have probably stepped in. And then no agency stepping up because no politician has adopted this why don't we abolish the baseball rule concept. We have business as usual. And we are in the dark ages, Donald, in 2025.
yes.
Things may have improved, but solutions are down the road. They're not anytime tomorrow. I'd like them to become sponsored tomorrow. And we will continue, Brendan and I, and Brianna's been with me for now a year, to continue putting things in front of people. Let people decide what their own memories are. Because if we happen to be now tainting your memories because, oh no, Jordan and Brianna and Brendan are now bringing information to us that makes us rethink our past memories. Sorry, that's what we do. It could have been you the day of or the day before or after. How do you feel now? And when you look at all the exhibits, 350,000 foul balls, there are going to be direct hits, but at least tell the people. And maybe it is 18 and older in some cases that should be come on down if you want to take line drives to the neck, but market it that way and don't pretend it's not happening. Running with the Bulls in Spain, you have to be 18 and older. So this was engaging and exciting. I like to turn it up a notch. So thanks, Donald.
Yeah. No, I
You
think I
provided
think it's
some
good.
good pushback and some good questions.
My last thing is that have
Sure.
you thought about making a documentary? There's plenty enough information here for a very nice documentary, a historical movement, and if not that, getting a booth or a kiosk at the Baseball Hall of Fame would be
Uh-huh.
something that I think Foul Ball Safety
Yeah.
Now might
Oh,
look
terrific.
into doing.
We want to become visible and we will certainly want people to see us on display. And there's no better place than Main Street, Cooperstown, of course, where 300,000 people are coming every year. Maybe we will have a pop up exhibit on one of those stores, one of those souvenir stores, where we can get people coming in thinking one thing about the baseball, foul ball baseball experience, and hopefully walking out 5 minutes later thinking something totally different. So that's a great idea. Thank
Well,
you.
it should be part of the main exhibit because it's a part of the game. And
Well, I don't know if they're ready to accept their past. They may be opening themselves up for liability. That's a longer conversation. We will
yeah,
talk. I've worked with lawyers and they have their ideas. But in regarding
the
the
documentary.
documentary, I mean, terrific idea, of course. Funny that you speak of it, but we're in the month of September 2025, and there are filmmakers and documentary makers looking at our information. And heck, we're going to help them if we can and tell the story. So I hope we're getting their attention. That they're going to be thinking that the general public would take on this conversation or certainly look at all of our information so we can continue to raise these questions and let people decide
There
for
is
themselves how
there
business
is a
is being
very
done.
attractive aspect to your dragon, and that is there is plenty of B-roll footage to
Yeah.
intersperse between the boring parts of the documentary, the people talking parts. You've got tons of video and old-timey baseball stuff that could be running during. That's what documentarians usually are looking for, is not so much filming, but having that extra stuff to fill in over the long expository diatribes that
Well,
people
we're having these conversations now, and we're excited. And you may know someone who may want to knock and talk, and we will, and we'll gladly contribute. Whether I
there
can have any role in this or not, or just be a volunteer and inspire, just a database, we will give them the database. We have 2,000 files. We believe the literary world will find our information eventually. Next year, we'll have more than 2,000 files. It'll just keep growing. So we're just sort of like putting it all together, and somebody will help us weave and style this narrative of the unknown, the foul ball experience. Was it, how we saw the foul ball experience and how we should have seen it all along, etc. So I think this
well,
is
that's great.
really exciting and we'll
Yeah,
keep
no, it's a good
going.
conversation. I enjoy
Yeah.
talking to you, Jordan. I think you
Brianna,
you know
we,
you know your
yeah,
stuff.
I appreciate that.
Donald, just with your marketing background, aside from just driving sales, how can we use marketing for advocacy and to spread information and shed light on little known issues?
Well, marketing is making the public aware. So a lot of marketing, the free parts of marketing, are going on to TV shows and radio podcasts and talking about the goal of foul ball safety. Now, the end game would be something that you should really define better and have a really concise answer to what would make you guys most happy for this A, B, and C to happen, and then I guess that would get us 80% of the way there. It's the old 80-20 rule. So public relations is the biggest and least expensive part of marketing. Swag, foul ball safety now swag is a more expensive and a less but it's all that's kind of a fun part of marketing, I guess. With regard to awareness, the documentary would be the ultimate marketing tool because that would increase public awareness because people are always looking for something to watch. People love baseball. The darker side of baseball, or baseball's hidden secret, or baseball, the most deadly sport. And these are all names for documentaries that I'm coming up with on the fly. But these are things that spark people's interests, would get their ire up maybe. And what, baseball dangerous? No, the hockey's dangerous. Baseball's non-contact, but there are some dangerous aspects to it that once people become aware of it, then they can make those responsible decisions that we were talking about earlier.
Terrific.
Perfect. Thank you, Donald.
Huh? Perfect. Wow, Miranda. Thank you.
All right. Well, listen, I want to thank everyone for joining us today at Foul Ball Safety Now. And we want everyone to look at the website, and it won't take you too long to catch up on what we've been doing. Hopefully, you think my instincts have been correct, and you can give us some feedback anytime, and we'll do it again soon. We'll stay on the course.